Watch in the next 2 minutes God's message for your soulmate. My beloved child, listen carefully, don't skip this message. For the next few minutes, I want you to forget everything around you and give your full attention to what your heart has been trying to tell you. You may have clicked on this message because of the title, but perhaps there is something deeper happening inside you right now. Maybe there is a person you can't stop thinking about. Maybe their name appeared in your mind the moment you heard the word soulmate. Maybe you've been asking God for clarity because you're tired of guessing, tired of waiting, and tired of wondering whether the connection you feel is real or simply something your heart refuses to release. Stay until the end, because today's message isn't about giving you a guaranteed prediction. It is about helping you recognize the difference between emotional longing and the kind of love that can actually stand the test of time. Take a slow breath. Let your mind become quiet for a moment. Think about the person who has been occupying your thoughts lately. Don't force the memory. Just allow it to appear naturally. Maybe you remember their face. Maybe you remember their voice. Maybe you remember a conversation that seemed ordinary at the time but somehow stayed inside your heart. Maybe you remember the way they looked at you when neither of you knew what to say. There are certain memories that refuse to disappear because they carry an emotion we haven't completely understood yet. And perhaps that's where God's message begins. Not with a prediction. Not with a countdown. But with a question. What is your heart trying to teach you through this connection? Because sometimes we ask God to bring someone back when what we really need is clarity about why they left. Sometimes we ask for a soulmate when what we really need is healing. Sometimes we ask for a sign that someone is thinking about us when what we truly need is the courage to stop thinking about someone who isn't showing up for us. And sometimes, yes, the person we care about may genuinely be growing, changing, and preparing to reconnect. But we cannot know that simply by wishing for it. We discover it through actions. Listen carefully, because this is important. If someone is meant to become part of your future, you should not have to spend every night decoding their silence. You should not have to analyze every social media post, every coincidence, every song, every number, or every dream just to convince yourself that they care. Healthy love eventually becomes clear. It communicates. It takes responsibility. It makes effort. It creates peace. Maybe the person you're thinking about hasn't been able to give you that peace yet. Maybe they're fighting their own fears. Maybe they don't know how to express what they feel. Maybe they have regrets they haven't admitted. Maybe they are afraid that reaching out will reopen a chapter they aren't prepared to handle. And perhaps tonight, they are thinking about you. Not because some mysterious force is forcing them to, but because memories have a way of returning when the noise becomes quiet. Imagine them alone after a long day. Their phone is beside them. They have spoken to people. They have laughed. They have worked. They have acted as though everything is normal. But suddenly, something reminds them of you. A song. A place. A phrase. A familiar date. A picture they weren't expecting to see. And for a moment, all the distractions disappear. They remember you. They remember what it felt like to be understood. They remember the conversations. They remember the moments they should have appreciated more. And maybe they wonder whether you've moved on. Maybe they wonder if you still care. Maybe they wonder if they waited too long. But here's where the message becomes deeper. You cannot build your future around what someone might be thinking. You build it around what they are willing to do. That distinction can save your heart. Maybe they miss you. But are they willing to communicate? Maybe they love you. But are they willing to show consistency? Maybe they regret what happened. But are they willing to take responsibility? Maybe they want another chance. But are they willing to create something healthier than what existed before? Those are the questions that matter. And perhaps that is the hint you've been asking for. The hint isn't always a dramatic event. Sometimes it is a change in behavior. Maybe someone who once disappeared begins communicating consistently. Maybe someone who avoided difficult conversations finally asks to have one. Maybe someone who never apologized finally takes responsibility without being forced. Maybe someone who once made you question your value begins treating your heart with care. Those are meaningful signs because they exist in reality. But there is another sign you need to recognize. Your own peace. Maybe you've noticed that something inside you has changed recently. You still care, but you're no longer willing to chase. You still remember them, but you're no longer willing to sacrifice your dignity for an answer. You still hope, but you don't feel like your entire future depends on one person returning. That is growth. That is healing. And perhaps that is the first miracle. Because when you stop chasing an outcome, you become able to see the truth clearly. If someone returns, you can evaluate them. If someone doesn't, you can continue living. If someone apologizes, you can decide whether the apology is enough. If someone changes, you can observe the change. You are no longer trapped inside uncertainty. You are free to choose. And maybe your soulmate is experiencing their own version of that awakening. Perhaps they are realizing that fear has controlled too many decisions. Maybe they pushed you away because closeness frightened them. Maybe they believed distance would protect them. Maybe they thought ignoring their emotions would make them disappear. But emotions don't always disappear when ignored. Sometimes they become quieter. Then stronger. Then impossible to avoid. Perhaps they've reached that point. The point where they can no longer pretend that what happened between you meant nothing. Maybe they are finally asking themselves why your memory continues to return. Maybe they are beginning to understand that they didn't simply miss a relationship. They missed a person who made them feel seen. And that realization can be powerful. But remember, my beloved child, realizing something and acting on it are two different things. Someone can realize your value and still remain afraid. Someone can miss you and still remain silent. Someone can love you and still not know how to build a healthy relationship. That's why you should never measure love only by emotion. Measure it by behavior. Measure it by consistency. Measure it by accountability. Measure it by peace. Because love that exists only in someone's thoughts cannot build a life with you. Eventually, it has to become action. Maybe that's what God is preparing you to understand. You don't need to chase a hidden message. You need to recognize visible truth. Maybe the person you're thinking about will eventually reach out. If they do, don't panic. Don't immediately assume everything has changed. Take your time. Listen. Ask questions. Let them explain. Then watch what happens afterward. If they say, "I miss you," ask yourself whether they also know how to stay. If they say, "I love you," ask whether their actions make you feel loved. If they say, "I want you back," ask whether they are prepared to build something new rather than repeat the old pattern. Those questions are not cold. They are wise. Your heart deserves wisdom. Maybe you've spent too much time believing that love has to hurt to be real. It doesn't. Love can be intense without being destructive. Love can be passionate without being chaotic. Love can be mysterious without being confusing. And perhaps your soulmate, if this connection is meant to grow, is learning how to offer you that kind of love. Maybe they are growing into a person capable of giving what they once couldn't. But don't force the process. People change when they choose to. Not because someone else desperately needs them to. So allow them their journey. And allow yourself yours. Your journey may involve healing from old disappointments. It may involve learning boundaries. It may involve forgiving yourself for staying too long. It may involve realizing that you were never asking for too much, you were asking someone who wasn't ready to give it. And once you understand that, your relationship with love changes. You stop begging for attention. You stop chasing explanations. You stop accepting crumbs because you are afraid there will be nothing else. You start saying, "I want love, but I also want peace. I want connection, but I also want honesty. I want commitment, but I also want respect. I want someone deeply, but I won't lose myself for them." That is a powerful place to stand. And maybe that is why this message found you now. Not to tell you exactly when someone will arrive, but to prepare you for what healthy love should feel like when it does. Perhaps the next 2 minutes aren't about the clock at all. Perhaps they represent a moment of decision. A moment when you decide that your future will not be controlled by fear. You will not keep asking whether someone secretly wants you while ignoring whether they openly choose you. You will not confuse silence with depth. You will not confuse distance with destiny. You will not confuse suffering with proof. You will look for truth. You will look for action. You will look for peace. And if the person you're thinking about eventually meets you there, perhaps something beautiful can begin. Maybe they will come with an apology. Maybe they will come with honesty. Maybe they will say the words they've been afraid to say. Maybe they'll finally admit that they were scared. Maybe they'll tell you they didn't know how to handle their feelings. Maybe they'll explain why they disappeared. And perhaps you'll listen without immediately reopening the entire past. Because you've learned something important. You can hear someone's pain without taking responsibility for fixing it. You can understand their fear without allowing their fear to hurt you again. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love without surrendering your boundaries. That's mature love. And perhaps that is what your future needs. Not a dramatic rescue. A healthy partnership. Two people who can communicate. Two people who can disagree without destroying each other. Two people who can apologize. Two people who can grow. Two people who can choose each other without manipulation. Maybe that's the relationship you're being prepared for. And perhaps the person you think about is also being prepared. But whether it is them or someone else, you don't need to know tonight. You only need to know that your life is moving. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, you are changing. Your standards are changing. Your understanding is changing. Your relationship with yourself is changing. And sometimes the biggest shift happens quietly. You wake up one morning and realize you don't feel the same desperation. You still care, but you no longer feel controlled by the situation. You still remember, but you no longer feel trapped in the memory. You still hope, but you no longer fear the possibility that it may not happen. That is freedom. And freedom creates space for the right love. Maybe someone from your past fills that space. Maybe someone new does. Maybe the love you've been searching for begins with you. Whatever happens, don't rush it. The best things in life don't become more meaningful because you force them to happen faster. Let people reveal themselves. Let time reveal intentions. Let actions reveal character. And let peace reveal whether something belongs in your life. So if you've been asking God for a hint, perhaps you've already received one. The hint may be this. You are no longer willing to settle for love that leaves you constantly confused. That's a sign of growth. And perhaps another hint is this. You are becoming more comfortable with the possibility of walking away from what doesn't honor you. That's strength. And another. You still believe love can be beautiful, even after experiencing disappointment. That's hope. Maybe your soulmate is part of that future. Maybe they're not. But your future will still be meaningful. And if they are meant to return, they will need to meet the new version of you. The version that doesn't chase. The version that communicates. The version that listens. The version that watches actions. The version that knows when to stay and when to walk away. That person is becoming you. And perhaps that is why you are here right now. Because you're ready. Not necessarily for a specific person. But for a different kind of love. A love where you don't have to wonder every night. A love where communication doesn't feel like begging. A love where affection doesn't disappear without explanation. A love where two people can say, "I'm scared," instead of disappearing. A love where vulnerability is respected. A love where peace isn't boring. A love where consistency is attractive. A love where choosing each other is not a dramatic event. It is a daily decision. And perhaps, someday, the person you're thinking about will understand that too. Maybe they will realize that the opportunity they had wasn't simply a relationship. It was a chance to grow with someone who genuinely cared. And maybe they will regret the moments they took that for granted. But regret alone isn't enough. If they return, let them bring growth with them. If they don't, let their absence teach you what you will never accept again. Either way, you win wisdom. Either way, you grow. Either way, your story continues. So don't be afraid of the ending of one chapter. Sometimes the chapter ends because the next one requires a stronger version of you. Maybe you're being prepared for a conversation. Maybe you're being prepared for closure. Maybe you're being prepared for reconciliation. Maybe you're being prepared for someone entirely unexpected. You don't have to know which one yet. Just stay open. Stay grounded. Stay wise. And stay connected to your own life. Because if love arrives while you're living fully, it becomes an addition to your life, not the replacement for it. And that is the kind of love worth having. Now, my beloved child, as these final moments arrive, I want you to remember something. Don't let a title, a prediction, or a message make you believe that your life is controlled by a countdown. Your life is bigger than 2 minutes. Your love story is bigger than one person. Your future is bigger than one unanswered question. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not running out of chances. You are simply standing at a moment where you can choose what kind of love you will accept from this point forward. And perhaps the most powerful prayer you can make tonight is not, God, please make this person come back. Perhaps it is, God, if this person is right for me, let our connection become healthy, honest, mutual, and peaceful. And if they are not, give me the strength to release them and make room for what is. That prayer doesn't come from desperation. It comes from trust. And trust changes everything. So if someone is thinking about you tonight, let them think. If someone misses you, let them miss you. If someone wants to reach out, let them find the courage. If someone wants a future with you, let them demonstrate it. You don't need to chase. You don't need to force. You don't need to prove. You simply need to remain true to yourself. And perhaps tomorrow, something unexpected will happen. Maybe a conversation. Maybe a message. Maybe a realization. Maybe nothing outwardly dramatic at all. But something inside you may become clearer. You may finally understand what you have been asking for. Not just a person. A feeling. A relationship where you can breathe. A love where you don't have to constantly wonder. A connection where your heart feels safe. That is the real blessing. And if your soulmate can offer that, welcome the possibility slowly. If they cannot, release them without believing that love has failed you. Sometimes the wrong connection teaches you exactly what the right one should feel like. And one day, perhaps you'll sit beside someone who makes everything feel simple. No guessing. No chasing. No games. No fear. You'll look at them and realize. This is what peace feels like. And maybe you'll understand why every confusing chapter had to teach you something. Why every unanswered message made you stronger. Why every disappointment made your standards clearer. Why every goodbye taught you how to choose yourself. You weren't being punished. You were becoming prepared. Prepared for love that doesn't require you to disappear inside it. Prepared for someone who doesn't simply want your attention, but respects your heart. Prepared for a relationship where both people can say, I choose you. Not once. Not only when they're afraid of losing you. But again and again. In ordinary moments. In difficult moments. In quiet moments. In real life. That is the love you deserve. So take this final breath and let go of the pressure to know everything. You don't need to know who. You don't need to know when. You don't need to know exactly how. You only need to know what you will accept. And from this moment forward, choose clarity over confusion. Peace over obsession. Truth over fantasy. Consistency over promises. Self-respect over desperation. And love that meets you halfway. Maybe your soulmate is closer than you think. Maybe the next chapter is closer than you think. Maybe a beautiful conversation is closer than you think. But don't spend tonight waiting for it. Live. Because when love finally arrives, you want to be present enough to recognize it. And when it does, may it not feel like a storm you have to survive. May it feel like the calm you've been waiting for. May it not ask you to chase. May it invite you to walk beside it. May it not make you question your worth. May it remind you of it. And when the right person finally chooses you, may you realize that the greatest sign wasn't a number, a coincidence, or a countdown. It was the peace in your heart. The clarity in their actions. The honesty between you. And the simple feeling that you no longer have to wonder. Because the right love doesn't keep you trapped in the question, do they want me? The right love eventually gives you the answer through everything it does. So this message ends here, but your story does not. Close this chapter with faith. Walk into tomorrow with courage. And remember one final truth. You are not waiting for someone to complete your story. You are writing your story now. If your soulmate belongs in the next chapter, they will meet you there, not because you chased them, but because you both chose to walk toward the same future. And when that day comes, you won't need another 2-minute message. You won't need another sign. You won't need another countdown. You'll simply look at each other and know. This time, we're not running out of time. We're finally using it together. My beloved child, listen carefully. This is where the message reaches its final and most powerful moment. Perhaps you came here hoping to discover what your soulmate is thinking, whether they are coming back, or whether something is about to happen between you. But before this message ends, there is one truth you need to carry with you: your future should never depend on someone else's hesitation. If someone is meant to walk beside you, they must eventually make the choice to walk toward you. You don't have to chase them down the road. You don't have to beg them to turn around. You don't have to spend another night wondering whether you were enough. Maybe your soulmate is thinking about you right now. Maybe they are remembering your voice, your kindness, your presence, or the way you made them feel understood. Maybe they regret something they said. Maybe they wish they could return to a particular moment and make a different choice. And perhaps they are finally realizing that some people can be replaced in a schedule, but not in the heart. Yet even if they miss you deeply, remember this: missing you is a feeling, choosing you is a decision. What matters is what they do with that feeling. If they reach out, listen with an open heart but a clear mind. If they apologize, listen for accountability. If they promise change, watch for consistency. If they say they want you back, let them explain what they are prepared to do differently. You don't need to punish them for the past, but you also don't need to pretend the past never happened. A real second chance doesn't erase the lesson. It uses the lesson to build something stronger. And maybe this is the unexpected part of God's message for you tonight. You don't need to know exactly when your soulmate arrives. You need to become ready for the kind of love you prayed for. A love that doesn't disappear when things become difficult. A love that doesn't make you question your value. A love that communicates instead of manipulating. A love that gives you room to breathe. A love that doesn't require you to become smaller so someone else can feel bigger. Perhaps you have spent too long believing that intense emotions automatically mean destiny. They don't. Sometimes intensity is simply uncertainty. Sometimes the strongest attraction comes from an unfinished story, not a healthy future. And sometimes the most beautiful love arrives quietly, without the chaos you once believed was necessary. It doesn't keep you awake wondering where you stand. It doesn't make you compete. It doesn't force you to decode every silence. It simply shows up. That is the kind of love you should recognize. Maybe your soulmate will become that person. Maybe someone unexpected will. Either way, don't be afraid. Because your life isn't ending because one person hasn't chosen you yet. Your life is beginning every morning you wake up and decide to keep moving forward. Every time you choose healing over obsession, you create a new future. Every time you choose self-respect over chasing, you become stronger. Every time you release the need to control another person's decision, you make room for something real. And perhaps your soulmate is learning the same lesson from the other side. Maybe they are beginning to understand that they cannot keep expecting you to remain exactly where they left you. Maybe they are realizing that your patience had a limit. Maybe they are recognizing that the silence they once used as protection became the very thing that created distance. Maybe they are finally asking themselves, what if I lose this person permanently? That question can awaken someone. But let it awaken them through their own realization. Don't rush to rescue them from it. Let them sit with it. Let them understand it. Let them decide what kind of person they want to become. Because if they truly want another opportunity with you, they won't just return with emotions. They'll return with maturity. And when that happens, you will notice the difference. Their words will be calmer. Their intentions will be clearer. Their behavior will become more consistent. They won't expect you to forget everything overnight. They'll understand why trust takes time. They'll be willing to rebuild. And perhaps one day, after all the confusion has finally settled, you will sit across from them and realize that you no longer need to ask, "What are we?" Because their actions will already have answered. That's when you'll understand why you were asked to wait. Not necessarily because you were waiting for them, but because you were waiting to become strong enough to recognize what was worthy of your heart. So don't spend tonight watching the clock. The clock is not your enemy. Time is not stealing your future. Time is revealing it. Every day reveals someone's character. Every delay reveals someone's priorities. Every difficult conversation reveals someone's maturity. Every goodbye reveals someone's ability to let go. And every return reveals whether someone actually changed. Let time speak. It will tell you what words cannot. Maybe tomorrow you'll receive a message. Maybe you'll hear something unexpected. Maybe you'll cross paths with someone. Maybe you'll simply wake up feeling lighter. Don't underestimate that last one. Sometimes the greatest answer is the peace that arrives when you stop demanding an answer. You finally breathe. You finally sleep. You finally stop checking. You finally realize, I can love someone without waiting for them. That is freedom. And freedom is not the opposite of love. It is what makes healthy love possible. Because when you are free, you don't choose someone because you're afraid to be alone. You choose them because they genuinely add something beautiful to your life. You don't stay because you're terrified of losing them. You stay because both of you continue choosing the relationship. You don't tolerate everything because you call it unconditional love. You create boundaries because you understand that love without respect eventually becomes pain. And maybe that's the lesson you were meant to hear today. Not, someone is coming. Not, someone is guaranteed. But, prepare yourself for a love that can stay. Maybe that person is your current soulmate. Maybe it's someone from your past. Maybe it's someone you haven't met yet. You don't need to decide tonight. Let life reveal it. And if someone returns, don't ask whether they are your destiny. Ask whether their presence brings you closer to the person you want to become. If yes, move slowly. If no, release peacefully. Either way, you are not losing. You're learning. You're becoming wiser. You're becoming stronger. You're becoming more capable of recognizing real love. And perhaps one day you'll understand that every moment you thought you were being delayed was actually giving you time to prepare. Time to heal. Time to mature. Time to forgive yourself. Time to discover what you truly need. Time to stop accepting less. Time to understand that love isn't supposed to feel like a constant emergency. The right love can be passionate and peaceful at the same time. It can make your heart race without making your mind panic. It can be exciting without being unstable. It can be deep without being destructive. That is what you should wait for. Not perfection. Just mutual effort. And when you finally experience that, you may look back at all the nights you spent wondering and realize something almost unbelievable. You were never running out of time. You were being redirected toward clarity. Maybe that's why this message found you. Maybe that's why you stopped scrolling. Maybe that's why your heart reacted. Not because you were promised a specific person, but because you needed permission to stop being afraid. So take that permission now. Stop being afraid of what happens if they don't return. Stop being afraid that someone else will find love before you. Stop being afraid that your best days are behind you. They're not. Your best days are not dependent on one person. Your story is bigger than one relationship. Your heart is bigger than one disappointment. Your future is bigger than one unanswered message. And perhaps the most beautiful chapter hasn't even started yet. So if your soulmate is meant to return, let them return with honesty. If they are meant to stay, let them stay with consistency. If they are meant to love you, let them love you openly. And if they cannot, don't destroy yourself trying to convince them. Walk forward. Not bitter. Not angry. Not hopeless. Just wiser. Because sometimes walking away isn't giving up on love. Sometimes it's making room for love to finally become healthy. And when the right person enters your life, you won't need to beg them to see your value. They will see it. You won't need to convince them to communicate. They will communicate. You won't need to threaten them with your absence. They will value your presence. You won't need to wonder if they care. You will feel it in the way they treat you. And perhaps that is the final sign you've been asking for. Peace. Not obsession. Not fear. Not confusion. Peace. So tonight, release the countdown. Release the pressure. Release the need to know everything. Give your heart permission to rest. If someone is thinking about you, let them think. If someone misses you, let them miss you. If someone wants to reach out, let them find the courage. And if they do, meet them from a place of strength rather than desperation. You have nothing to prove. You are already worthy. You were worthy before they met you. You are worthy while they are distant. You will remain worthy whether they return or not. Never forget that. And perhaps, somewhere in the future, you will meet the person who makes you understand why all the confusion had to end. Maybe they'll look at you and say, "I don't want to play games with your heart." Maybe they'll say, "I want to build something real." Maybe they'll say, "I choose you." And for the first time, you won't feel afraid. Because you'll know that those words are backed by actions. You'll know that love isn't something you have to chase. It's something two people create together. And that is when the countdown truly ends. Not when the clock reaches 0. But when you stop believing that your life is running out of time. Because your life isn't running out. Your story isn't over. Your love story isn't finished. This is simply another chapter. And maybe the next chapter will surprise you. Maybe it will bring the person you've been waiting for. Maybe it will bring someone better suited to the person you've become. Maybe it will bring a deeper relationship with yourself. Whatever it brings, walk into it without fear. Walk with faith. Walk with wisdom. Walk with your heart open and your boundaries strong. And when love finally stands in front of you, don't ask, "Is this the person I was waiting for?" Ask, "Does this love give me the peace I prayed for?" If the answer is yes, take their hand. If the answer is no, keep walking. Because you were never created to spend your entire life begging for a place in someone's heart. You were created to live, to grow, to love, and to experience a connection where both people willingly choose one another. So let this be your final thought tonight. If it is meant for me, it will not require me to lose myself. If it is healthy for me, it will bring clarity. If it is real, it will survive honesty. And if it is love, it will meet me halfway. Close your eyes. Take one final breath. And release the question you have been carrying. You don't need the answer tonight. You only need peace tonight. Tomorrow can bring whatever it brings. A message. A conversation. A new beginning. A goodbye. A surprise. Or simply another ordinary day. But whatever tomorrow brings, you will face it stronger than you were yesterday. And perhaps one day, when you finally look back, you'll realize the greatest message wasn't that your soulmate was coming. It was that you were becoming ready to recognize the love that deserved to stay. So don't wait beside the door. Live. Don't stare at the phone. Grow. Don't chase the person. Choose yourself. And if your soulmate truly belongs in your story, let them find you moving forward. Let them meet you in your peace. Let them meet you in your strength. Let them meet you as the person you were always becoming. And when that moment finally comes, there will be no need for a countdown. No urgency. No fear. No guessing. Just two hearts, two choices, and one clear decision. We are here now. And this time, we're going to do it right. That is the ending you deserve. Not a desperate reunion. A peaceful beginning. Not someone finally noticing your worth. Someone consistently honoring it. Not a love that arrives because you're afraid of being alone. A love that stays because both of you are grateful to be together. And maybe, my beloved child, that is the miracle you've been waiting for all along. Not someone coming to save you, but someone arriving who knows how to walk beside you. Until then, keep your heart soft, your mind clear, and your standard strong. Your story is still unfolding. And the most beautiful chapter may be closer than you think.